and I just wonder how much of this Jason Rolls actually wants and how much this has been thrust upon him.
No, they have not made one bad signing. I mean, we needed a forward leader.
All right, today, the worst kept secret in rugby league has proven to be true. We're going to talk about Luai's move and what that means for his former and now future club. What else have we got, Steve?
The exciting news is we bring out the red pen and we put a line through another contender for the 2026 premiership.
It's big. And we talked about Coach of the Year earlier in the week. Today we're going to talk about who are the coaches under pressure and who do we think may be really feeling it when 2027 season rocks around as well. So let's dive in. So it looked like this story was a fait accompli when it was spoken about over the weekend. I've even heard some people today suggest that maybe it was already, that whole thing had already been organised before it started to really gain traction in the media, and it's quite possibly the case, because you would think the Tigers wouldn't move him on unless they knew they were actually going to be able to offload him. So I reckon that makes sense. There've been plenty of Para fans that have come out and had their say and think of the craziness of it, and I've been one of those people. I've been hit up by plenty of people asking my thoughts. But I did see a post today that got me thinking, and he was talking about 2001. And he said in the year 2000, he watched a pretty tough Parramatta pack absolutely give it to the Bears, and he talked about how the team got cheered off because they just absolutely smashed them and absolutely destroyed Jason Taylor. Actually, it might have been the year before in the semi-finals. And he said, I can remember thinking that he got absolutely smashed, but he just kept showing up and he was tough. And he goes, and then when we signed him in 2001 for 1 year, it was kind of like, what are we doing 1 year? He said, but that took us all the way to the grand final with the team that broke a whole lot of records. When if you look at that list now, you think, how did they? Given it wasn't the most attractive 17 you've seen. So I just read it. It's quite a long article, and I read that thinking, okay, well, maybe he's right. We need to actually try and find some positive. We can mope around and say what a joke, and maybe it is, but maybe also Paul Crawley and Paul Kent suggested in their show yesterday, I think it was, that because they tongue in cheek said, well, no one, you're not allowed to speak to anyone before November 1, but they also pointed out that everyone's still having those conversations. Maybe they have lined up someone like Burton for 2028. Maybe they have got another plan already in the works. And if that's the case, getting this guy in who's going to be a leader, he's got a proven track record playing next to Moses and at the highest level, maybe there's some merit to it. Now, I know you're going to probably turn around and go, still don't like it. And I honestly, I still don't like it, but I'm looking for some positives in it.
Yeah. Well, you're a long-suffering fan, mate, and the first thing we all do, no matter who you support, is look for the positives, and all of a sudden you'll be out buying a Jerome jersey tomorrow morning at Peter Wynn's School.
Let's not get carried away.
So, look, the whole thing's been strange to me, right? And we won't know the background. That'll be a tightly guarded secret. Benji's come out like we said he needed to and given a press conference where he's put a lot of things to bed, rightfully or wrongfully. At least, again, Benji's shown that he's a genuine leader, right? Whether he's making the right decisions in the background and how much control he has, will be seen in the future, but he's a genuine leader. He handled that press conference once again very professionally and very well. Look, the story from him leaving Penrith and wanting to be Batman and not Robin anymore, the story of how much has he impacted the Tigers, is 1 year at Para going to be a success, is the first signing ever at PNG going to work out? There's always been these questions that have followed him through his career, which is disappointing for him because he's a clean skin. He's never done anything wrong. The worst thing he's ever done is put a few things on social media. So it's disappointing that he's had to continually be in the media like that. The one good thing that you'd pointed to a number of times over the last sort of month is Benji come out and said he's had a massive impact on the culture at the Tigers. He's shown them how to train. He's shown the young fellas how to be a professional, how to conduct themselves off the park. And that was the big question mark for mine, was clearly this hasn't worked on the ladder. Once again, the Roosters find themselves 7 wins, 10 losses, 13th, and looking like there's little to no hope of making the semis. But if he's instilled that in those juniors, in those young players coming through, then you turn away and class it as a success. Certainly commercially, it's been a success. The sponsorships are up, the corporate dollars up, the grounds are packed. So if he has had that impact that Benji's told us all about, then you turn around and say it is what it is. And reality, when you look at the dollar amount, it's only been 2 years. So there is talk that he could be the Tigers could be kicking the tin in the vicinity of 500,000, and Para picking up 700. I think that's a little bit much for the Tigers to be chipping in, if I'm honest. But look, the reality is, if they invest that 700 wisely in the future of the club, then I think the Tigers have come out of it smelling okay. As far as Para goes, look, you're the first to admit it. Para need some marquee players, right? They need some top quality, top line players. So for them, even if it is a year, at least it is someone there that can handle the limelight and can hopefully teach a few of these young halves that Para have got coming through the right way to go about things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I said on Monday, I think what Luai, now you got me saying it too, what Luai brought to the Tigers will be shown down the track. And I saw this quote today. I thought it was great. The best leaders often plant trees they'll never sit under. And he's created something there, a legacy somewhat. But you will hear from the players that he's played with, that from all the different places that he's been, and I'm sure that will be no different in the future, is how much of a positive impact he is on a group. It's easy to judge him based on the social media and based on some of the things you see, because he's loud and he's brash. But all the people that meet him say he's just the most humble and like good man to chat to, and he's got time for people. And we've talked about it, like you talked about it, which we'll get to in a minute when we talk to Lyle, and we'll play that clip of when we spoke to him about the Dragons. Fans want hope. And
100%.
And this, rightly or wrongly, we'll try and find some hope from it. And if it can develop some of those younger players, then it's absolutely a win. Because sometimes leadership's not always about wins. It's not always about the scoreboard. It's about the improvement. It's about what's changed. It's about, like you said, it's more. You still want to win games, but there is a bigger picture for clubs now, because they are organisations, they're businesses. Just on Benji, like you said, he handled that so professionally. It's interesting how the media spins it. There was a couple of those conversations. There was one, the press conference, and there's headlines like, he was fired up, and it's just rubbish. All he did was just be really clear in his boundaries. He told them what he was going to do, and then when they tried to take him to the conversation in a direction that he said it wouldn't go, he just stood his ground and said, like, I've said that. And he was quite calm. And it's amazing how that they can just spin. I'm a fan of how Marshall goes about it, because like in his playing days, he played it his way. And I think he's definitely worth persisting in, because he's got he's obviously got the players on board, because a few of them have now said that they're going to go wherever he goes. And let's be honest, they haven't got a great list. Like, you can say, they haven't gone any further, but what he has done, he's put faith in youth, and there's guys there who next year will be 50 games plus, and that they've got some real quality if they can keep them on the pitch, that if they can stay fit, mate, they're definitely on the upward trajectory for sure.
Yeah, look, agree. We mentioned that. And at the end of the day, he only had 12 more months in him before he was gone anyway, right? He'd signed a PNG a couple of months back, and it is what it is. And the Tigers have always been, on the back of the nursery out in Campbelltown and Western Sydney, they've always been that nursery, that young club. Even when they won the comp when Benji was there, it was a very young side. They had a couple of old hard heads in the middle, but they were a very young side. That's always been the West Tigers, and then even before them, the two clubs before the merge. So I think the youth policy for the Tigers is the way to go. I think that's their identity. So it'll be interesting to them if they can use this extra money to tie them up. I think that's all the better. And then you talk about the Eels. The big call with them is they've got some young gun halves coming through that are Polynesian, and I think he will help them. I listened to a podcast just recently where Mark Boris interviewed Chamis about the PNG site, which was a sensational interview, and he mentioned that Jerome was the first signing because of that. Because he knew that everyone coming to the club after that and everything he spoke about for them was about culture, right? But let's get the on-field results, right? Don't get him wrong, but it was all about the right fit off the park. And he just said everything we did and everyone we spoke to, all the research that went into it, that Jerome was the right person to build the club and the culture around. So Benji's spoken about it. Chamis has clearly done his due diligence. The Panthers don't suffer fools, and they would have kept him if they could have. So, look, Parra could be onto something, and if they can get a valuable 12 months out of him, I can't see him taking them to a premiership. Don't get me wrong, but if they can get a valuable 12 months out of him, a big preseason to show these young fellas what to do, then, look, it could be good for all clubs concerned, mate.
Yeah, let's hope. To me, two things. One is I imagine they would have consulted with the senior players. Maybe not, maybe not. But you think like Moses would have been on board with this. There was rumours going around after they did well to Origin that they'd really clicked, and maybe there was a window there going back 2 years ago. The other thing to me it shows is there's still a disconnect between what Riles wants to do and what the management at Parra want to do. So Mark O'Neill and Jim Sarantinos are going in one direction. This is what it seems like from the outside looking in. But if Riles made the decision on Dylan Brown, he said the future is now, and we're gonna put him. Actually, he don't even played Cup. I think he actually just didn't play.
Yeah, correct.
As a reserve. While we play some of these young guys, and honestly, the young guys that they played was Dean Hawkins, who was moving on, and Volkman at different times, and they're going to move on from him as well, and yet the club keeps arranging these deals, which, okay, it is very much a present moment. It is the future is now, but it's not really the future. It's just now. Like this is something in the moment that they're going to do. And I just wonder how much of this Jason Riles actually wants and how much this has been thrust upon him.
Let me throw one at you, and I wish I had have. We spoke to Lyle about it. That Riles had the opportunity to coach St George a couple of years ago, and he decided to turn it down and went to Parramatta. Right.
Yep.
Right now, with the young St George pack that they got coming through and the signings they've had. I think when you and I could debate this for many years to come, we'll see how we go. But I think the Dragons got more upside to them right now than Parra, and Parra's front office seems to be, to your point, still not gelling, and like it hasn't for a long time. Both St George and Parramatta had long-term leaders of the club, and both of them left in those early 2000s, and since then it's been very disjointed. Douse left a long time ago, and the fans demanded that. And Fitzgibbon left Parramatta in very similar circumstances. And since then, the boards and committees have always been infighting. So for me, it's an interesting one that Riles might look back in times gone by with the what's coming through at the Dragons, because Parramatta right now don't look like there's huge futures ahead. They've really got to get these young players up to speed and do it quickly for mine.
Yeah, but I'd also say this: 6 months changes lots, because we had the opposite. The script was completely opposite at the start of the year.
True.
We were talking about how Parra had finished the year, how those young guys had come on. We talked about a team that was fully fit. So Hopgood was playing, Paulo was playing, Dury was playing, Simonson was playing. There's probably more that I can't think of, but they're first graders who'd been playing well for a good couple of years who aren't there. Hopgood was talked about in Origin circles he played Origin in that 2024 season. Yep. So things can change quickly. The Dragons have gone on a great spree. and they're definitely on the up. But the word is that Para, there's not a great crop of players coming off for next year, but there is a heap of quality coming up for 2028. So that'll be game on from November 1. There's also always whispers in the game. There's always players that fall out of the tree. Like Dylan Walker, for example, has been so good for us for the 18 months that he's been there. So that will still happen. So I just think that how it'll play out, we won't be able to see that until some of those pieces and some of those things start to fall. If they don't sign anyone else, then yeah, they're a few years off, but they have invested heavily in some young guys who are going to be there for a long time. We've talked about the spine on the Monday show, but we've also got Sam Tavatidi, who's been good, and the young Tegan Brown, who's 5 first grade games in. He's a beast. Like, he looks like he could be a guy that could be in first grade for a long time, because he's just been so impressive. He's added an offload to his game last weekend. So yeah, it reminds me a little bit of that late 90s when we got we got pretty lucky with some of those big names from the Dogs at the same time that crop of Kalis, Vella, Hindmarsh, both the Hindmarsh brothers coming through. If they can pick up a few more guys, then yeah, maybe there's more to it. But I still think, like the Dragons, that they're still a good 2 years away at least.
Yeah. Certainly interesting to see how it plays out, mate. I hope for Tigers fans that this puts the press to bed and they can try and get on with, very, very slight hope, but hope of trying to salvage the back end of this season, and they can get on some footy, and it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out for both clubs next year, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam Tuivasa. I've gone completely the wrong direction with that name. So yes, just my correction there. Now, talking of Dragons, we've had the great man Lyle on to talk all things Dragons. He's one of our biggest fans of the pod. He's always on there making comments and contributing on social media. So we thought, why not get him on and we'll talk all things Dragons. So let's do that now. G'day, Lyle. How you going?
Really good, thanks, Hawk. How are you?
Going well. Good to have our next fan guest on, and you're here to talk all things Dragons, as for those watching on YouTube can pretty easily tell. Thoughts so far on the season?
Well, first of all, mate, I really appreciate you having me on now after we've had 2 wins in a row. 4 points is very handy where we're sitting on the table, so I appreciate that greatly. Thoughts on the season so far? Wow, what a season. Went to Vegas, had a ball. Showed so much promise, unbelievable. Got ripped off. I think everyone's agreed with that by now. And then went downhill from there. I think the only people that know that are the people who are in the inner sanctum, and unfortunately we're not. So who knows? I genuinely don't. It just whatever happened, and we don't know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it over the last few weeks since Dean Young's done such a great job. I kind of start thinking maybe the game's passed Flano by, because there's a different breed of footballer coming through. He's been out of the game long enough. He still understands the game, but maybe he'd lost the passion. Who knows? It could have been a whole lot of things at play, right?
Oh, I actually agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that purely the fact that this year he brought in Kerr, another big forward, a big slower forward. We already had Gula, Blocker, etc. in those positions. And even after we lost a couple of games early and we started to decline in our performance, he still kept picking the same forward. So Kerr and Blocker and Gula, they all still started, and first one off the bench, the rotation was terrible. He absolutely showed no faith whatsoever in our younger, more mobile players. And I don't think he read the way the game went. The sixer gains and all that sort of stuff has changed the game completely. And he didn't read it. So I couldn't agree more with you, mate.
Yeah, it's a great point, because I think it just joins the list of those teams that were really prepared to have a tough, grinding it out battle. And when the game sped up, as you said, he put a lot of big guys in. That's the way his teams have always played, really tough, really physical, dominate the middle, and teams that had planned that way got left behind.
Yeah, you've still got to hold the middle. You've got to dominating's not so much as today as what it used to be. You've still got to hold the middle well. And unfortunately, our forwards tied too quickly, and our rotation was poor, and we ended up where we ended up, and we're still there, unfortunately.
Yeah, was the right thing to do to move him on?
Yeah, 100%. I think he was cooked in the finish. Football's now a business. From a business point of view, he was cooked, and they needed to let him go for his own well-being and health. From a football point of view, absolutely. I think that, as I said earlier, the signing occurred. Even the signing of Atkinson to 5'8". Atkinson's not a creative player by any means, and we already had his son, who he's admitted isn't a creative player, playing half. So he signed another player that's not creative. It doesn't make sense. Like Atkinson came in with all, guns blazing, saying he was going to take over and run the side and that. And it was a lot of bravado, but he had nothing to back it up, unfortunately.
Yeah, well said. Steve, far away.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with a lot of it. I think you're 100% right when we talk about the recruitment. I think he got the game they were expecting wrong, from the get-go. We saw Blake Laurie lose a lot of weight in the off-season. So they were clearly of the understanding that the game was going to change by forcing those changes. But then his decision-making process in the lead-up wasn't right. And I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly, mate, around, what we've seen with these young forwards coming through, and he's just delaying getting them. I think, you look at the Cronulla side that he coached and had the most success with, they were hard-nosed, older footballers. And unfortunately, the game's not that anymore. It's a young man's game. It's a fast game. And, forwards need to be built differently now. And again, you hit the nail on the head around the creative players. It just wasn't the right selections at the time. So I think he got it wrong, and he's paid the ultimate price for losing his job. But I think he needed it as much as the team did. So there's not too much there to argue against, mate. I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, even now, our forwards are holding the middle. Our younger forwards are holding the middle, and we've got a couple of second rowers now that can really play in Egan and Stewart. They're creating a little bit on the outside, but we're still getting beaten on the edges because of our big, less mobile outside backs. He even went big in the outside backs. Unfortunately, Sloane's ideal for what we want, but he can't tackle. And unfortunately, he only scores one try a game and lets in 3, so the maths don't add up.
Yeah, you talk about those younger forwards, mate. How good do you think this young crop coming through are? What's your take on them?
I think that Egan and Stewart and the Couchies, I love the Couchies. Gee whiz, play with all heart. They're all red V's from young men, so it's not as if we bought them in. I think they'll all play Origin. I'll be very surprised if they don't. I think one of our underrated players is front rower in Loco. Loco's brilliant. I love him. He's only a kid in a big man's body, and he's still growing into it and still learning how to use it. I think Young has been brilliant with him, the way he's eased him into the game. Like, he hasn't played big minutes like you see the 12s and those sort of Terrell May, those sort of blokes play. I think he's done a great job with that. Lids is going to be an outstanding hooker. He's a 200-game player for us, provided he can stay fit. He's had a little bit of trouble with hamstrings and that this year. He's brilliant. So yeah, mate. We still got Helen Go, who's out injured as well.
Yeah.
It hasn't really had a game. If we fail to keep him, I fully understand, because he's our first grader starting in 18 months' time with anybody. Mate, I love it, mate. We just had a young kid be picked in the Australian side, the schoolboys side, and outside centre. A real good footballer. So, from that point of view, we've got some players coming through, which is really good.
What's your take on, you've been watching the game for a long time, mate, obviously. What's your take on a young crop of forwards like this coming through together? In my time, I can't recall a club side having a crop of forwards so similarly aged that just appear to be destined for higher honours. Can you recall a club coming through like that before, mate?
Not from the one junior background. So from the one club and stay with the club, no. I mean, there's possibly some people from Penrith that I'm not 100% on. I remember in the old days, Canterbury had a number of young forwards come through together, the Folkeses and the Hughes's, but Folkes was he was a Canterbury junior, but he didn't, like, they were slightly different in age and that sort of stuff. But no, mate. I mean, they bought Gillespie from Candos, so I think those 5 players, all juniors, I can't remember anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember that either. You make a good point with Pacifica Tonga. He's really made sure he's had quality minutes. So he hasn't tried to stretch him out too early and ended up like burning him out or leaving him on to make mistakes. He's actually gone, okay, well, we're going to get quality out of you, even if it's only 20 minutes. And that's what we've seen from the young fella. He has been really effective.
Well, you go back to Flano, he wouldn't play him. And Loco wanted to leave. If you remember, Loco asked for a release to go elsewhere. Yep. And as soon as Flano left, Young took him under his wing. And as I'll say it again, Young's been brilliant, especially with him. I've actually noticed the Couchman brothers aren't spending as much time on the field now. Like he's taken them off. They were playing longer minutes earlier, but now that they've got a few games under their belt, and they're only kids. They're going to tire later in the season. They're not spending as much time on the field. So I think he's been great with the kids. I really do.
Yeah, you've mentioned Young a few times, mate. Is he your P to be the next coach, mate? You're in the hot seat. Who are you picking?
Great question. Yeah. Firstly, there's a Smokey out there somewhere that nobody knows.
Yeah, I'd love to know who that is.
So would I, mate. So would I. So I can't comment on him, but from a Young to Hornby point of view, from a business point of view, all businesses recruit from within. So for me, Young's got 18 months to 2 years start on Hornby with everything he does. If they brought Hornby in now, to take Hornby a minimum of 12 months to be where Young is now, and that's another wasted 12 months. Yep. From a football point of view, my first ever game of rugby league, I watched Balmain play St George in the 1966 grand final. We went out to the game. My sister took me out, and St George won. I think I might be wrong, but I think that was the last one of the reign. And Dean Young's my favourite player. Now I've watched Billy Smith play, I watched Papa Clay play, I watched Greaves Gasnier play. But Dean Young's my favourite player. I've never seen a bloke give more to the team than him. He nearly lost his leg a few years before playing football. He had an infection in his leg, and at one stage I talked about cutting his leg off. That was a long time ago, and I happened to be at the 2010 grand final when he scored the try into the post and grabbed the emblem. I got shivers thinking about it now. I love the bloke.
Do you remember that grand final, mate? You'd had a couple of beers by my memory.
I remember it early. The second half was a bit dicey. Probably half the first half was as well. Anyway,
that's what replays are for.
For me, take that bias out of it, and it is a bias without a doubt. But I've tried to take it out of it because I want St George to be, in the semis and be talked about. So I really hope, at the end of the day, whatever they do, I hope they pick the right person, and not because Dean Young's father was a significant part of the game, a part of the club especially. He's killed them with the juniors, mate. He's brilliant. They love him. You're going to tell by the way he looks at them and the way they play for him. The way he talks about him, he backs them. For mine, he's easily the right bloke for the job. And the one thing that disappointed me when they sacked Flano was it took them too long to put in Dean as an interim coach, and I think it's just taken them a little bit too long now to finalise it. Now, if you read everything there is going around now, he's early next week. We should hear about it. So it goes to the board next week with their final decision, and then it'll just be up to the board whether they ratify it or not. So fingers crossed it's Dean. If it's not, I just hope it's the right bloke, and and the Red V are flying high next year.
Yeah. Do you think they're a bit gun shy because they copped so much grief for re-signing Flano when they did?
Re-signing
so
the
so
coach.
they extended Flano, and now they're a bit nervous, so they're sort of hanging on a bit longer.
Yeah, quite possibly, but I don't think that if it's not Dean, then it's Hornby, unless it's this other guy from.
Yeah. So tell us, what have you heard? Like, have you heard that there might be someone else that they're interviewing?
Yeah, it's all over Facebook and that. I even read another thing today. They're all guessing who it is. Anyone from Maguire to Slater. Now, if it's Slater, maybe Dean misses out. But they've pulled every name under the sun. And they're talking about Tio and all sorts of people on Facebook at the moment. But nobody knows. It's a guess. But apparently there is a third coach out there. Now, unless it's a first-grade coach, a young guy, we've had Hook and we've had Flano. There's no use going back down that same path again. We need a younger guy.
So you wouldn't be happy with a Brad Arthur or someone of that ilk?
No. For the same reason that Flano failed, I think they'd fail as well. You hit it on the head earlier, mate. I think the game's gone past those blokes. Like Bennett's only hanging in there because of the people he's got around him. Don't get me wrong, love Bennett, 2010 premiers. Happy days. And unfortunately, Bellamy's got health issues, so we can't get him. Now it has to be a younger guy for mine.
Talk to us, mate. Well, obviously, for the first time in a long time, being a long-suffering Dragons fan, they've gone out and recruited at a high level. So obviously, Luke Metcalf will play 7 next year. Drinkwater will be at fullback. Keon Klaumatangi will be up front, helping that younger forward rotation. In my time, obviously Phil Sammy,
Connor Watson.
Huge signings that St George haven't done for a long, long time, probably ever. What's your take on this rebuild, mate? You've obviously mentioned your coach. What's your feel on these big ticket signings coming to the club next year?
Love every one of them, mate. Every one of them. They have not made one bad signing. I mean, we needed a forward leader, Keon, tick. We needed an outside back that can score tries. Now, Philip Sammy's not a highly recognised player, but he's the second leading try scorer for the Titans. And Titans have always been an attacking team. So that's got to say something. I mean, he can score a try. He's not bad in defence, and he's quick. So, I mean, he ran away from – who was it? I think he was the Storm fullback. I think he ran away from him a couple of weeks ago, scored a try. Connor Watson's – he's only for 1 year, and I do think it'll add a little bit of experience to our younger forwards. I think it'll help. That wasn't a vital signing, but it was a great signing. I think the two big ones for me is Drinkwater. We need a ball player outside of our halves. And right now, aside from Metcalf, we haven't got a ball player in our halves. Metcalf is the first halfback we've had since – I was going to say Hornby, but Hornby wasn't really a halfback. So I'm not sure. I mean, at least we bought a halfback now. We haven't wasted our money on Hunt. People like Hunt. So, I couldn't be more happy. The one thing I will say about our recruitment, Hawk, I know you're a Parramatta supporter. Would you like Gutho back?
Oh, that's a hard pass from us, mate.
And unfortunately, we've signed him 1 year too long. Flano has come out a couple of times. I've heard him on radio or podcasts say that he'd organised Metcalf and all of those sort of guys. Now, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but they all signed under Dean Young. And Drinkwater's came out publicly, same as Val, has come out publicly and said that they want Dean Young as their coach. Now, what more do you want?
You certainly you hit the nail on the head, mate. Obviously, we're going to have the two oldest centres in Australia, in Val and Gutho next year, and neither of them have had great years. Certainly, Gutho, you can't beat his effort. But you mentioned the Australian schoolboy, and we'll have one of the greatest names in the NRL when he reaches the big time, Cornelius Papali'i. Which is sensational. So for us to have an Australian schoolboy in the centres, which will, be a key point for the Dragons when they've built this young forward pack and they've got some strike and scoring potential. So let's hope, that they don't usually get the Australian schoolboys wrong too often. There's superstars that come from that. Our very own Jacob Gagan back in the day himself. So if Cornelius plays half up to his name, then we could have a star in the making as well.
Absolutely. No doubt in the world. And just going back to correct you on something that you said there a little while ago, Stephen, you said Gutho would play in the centres for us. If he does, we're in trouble. No offence.
Well, I don't know.
If anybody out there in the world knows our new St George coach, whoever it is, can you please ask him to play?
Play who? He's chopped out.
We've lost him. It was going to be. Oh, you're back. Who you just dropped out, mate? Who do you want in the centres?
Atkinson, our 5'8" centre. He's not a 5'8". He's actually was a fullback at Cronulla. He played fullback at Cronulla for a little while.
Well, we've seen that just recently with Burton. So that's an interesting one. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be happy regardless of where they play Gutho.
I'll be happy if he's back at Para apparently. Wyong's gone.
Mate, we've got one last question. We got one last question. It's from one of our tried and true listeners, mate. One of our followers, Elsie from Greenacres, asked you to give a 2027 prediction on where you think with these new recruits, regardless of who coaches. Let's say Dean Young coaches. Where do you think the Dragons finish in 2027? Elsie's keen to get your opinion, mate.
Well, I have read some of the questions that he's asked. Actually, he sounds like quite an intelligent young man, to be honest with you. At the start of this year, I think you'll remember, I actually posted a reply to your ladder after about 5 or 6 rounds, I think it was last year. And I had St George running 6th. Now, I made a slight mistake with it. I was 1 year early.
Yeah.
I see them finishing. I see him finishing the bottom of the 8, so 6th or 7th. But I do really look forward to hearing Gagan put him in his power rankings next year.
So am I. I think we're going to have to wait for a while. He's not keen on them, mate. But yeah, look, I'm for what it's worth, it's a long way away. But this is what us Dragons fans think about. I'm not far off, mate. That team that we're assembling for next year, we get the right man with the whistle and the clipboard. I can certainly see them being a top 8 team next year. So it'll be one of those cases. There'll be a lot of teams that improve from this year to next year, but it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out for the Dragons fans out there.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. As I said, if they can work, Reed's got to come into the side next year at some stage. I thought Young bringing him in this year was unbelievable. I think he did. It was brilliant for the kid. He actually hurt himself probably at the right time. But if we can move, if we need another centre, and with all due respects to Gutho, he's been great for us, but he's not a centre. And the game's past him. So if they can move Atkinson one wide, he's a big, mobile. He moves laterally well. If we can get him into the centres, then I think we've got a pretty good side. Yeah.
So let me just bring some balance to this, boys. But while you're on Gutho, when he was in his prime, he got absolutely barfed by Catewell when he played Origin. I don't know if you remember that, playing at centre. But that was when he was in his peak. So I just think, you can't play him at centre. And my concern is you got Luke Metcalf, who's played 30, 40 games over 5-6 seasons of first grade. So he's very much injury prone. You got Val there who has, Young's got the best out of him the last few weeks, but he's had an ordinary season. Let's be honest.
No argument.
And then you've got guys who are oversized for how the game is, are the other options at centre. So realistically, you've got Atkinson there. You're going to play out of position, whether that actually happens or not. So you got a half that's injury prone, and then you're probably lacking a bit there in the centre. So what are your answers? Who else are you going to play in the centre?
Atkinson and I think they'll play Val Holmes will play in the centres, and if Atkinson doesn't and they don't buy anyone else, it'll be Gutho, and that's a mistake. And they'll work that out very quickly. I think Young already knows that. but they got to find another one. I think Val's. I really like Val. I think Val was a really good purchase for us. He's had a shocking year. He really has. Easily his worst. But he played Origin last year. You don't fall off a cliff that quick. And he has, the last couple of weeks, he has played well. I don't know whether he was carrying an injury or what. I'm not sure. But I think you'll see Val in the centres next year. And if we can't unload Gutho for another centre, then they'll probably pick him. And as I said, that's a mistake.
You got if Metcalf is find himself injured again, Gutho might find himself playing on the halves, mate. So there might be an answer there.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that be great? I think no matter what, we'll have Reid there. Reid's the X factor guy for me. Like he's got a good short kicking game. He's quick. He's nimble. He sees things that others don't. And Metcalf will guide him around the park. Now, if Metcalf gets hurt, then in my opinion, they'll go back to Flano. They'll pick Flano unless they unload Flano as well, because we got Watson now. So with all due respect to Flano, we don't need him. So I wouldn't be surprised to lose if we don't lose Gutho and Flano next year, or the end of this season.
I love the bravado from you guys and the confidence. I haven't seen. So, well, you've got it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just think they're going to be a bit of a way off from making the 8, even with who they've bought, because when we did the top 8 at the start of the year, you try to find teams that won't be there, and you look at the Tigers. They bought well. Everyone thought they were going to make the 8, and they're still in that logjam. Now, in saying that, if everything goes right, everyone stays fit, other teams have injuries, then it's possible. I'm just not sure if that's realistic for next year, maybe 2028.
They're a lock, mate.
Where you are in the chicken comp.
They're a lock.
My dog makes the tips for me. We'll compare my top 8 to yours, Lyle, shall we?
Not right now. Well, I did say that the Roosters had played Penrith in the grand final and that Walker would be the man of the match. That was my prediction, yeah.
That's a possibility.
That'll be wrong as well, mate.
They're a massive chance of being there. I don't know whether they'll win it, but they're a massive chance of being there.
Yeah, no, it's fair call. Mate, thank you for coming on and passionately sharing your views. I just want to ask you one more question.
Yep.
We asked this of Troy, who came in to talk Roosters. What's one thing that you hate copying from opposition fans or the media about the Dragons?
I don't mind copping it because we deserve it this year.
I mean, maybe historically even then.
No, we haven't won too much for a long time, mate.
We deserve it all.
Yeah. Now, what disappoints me is they come out with stuff that they're talking through their hat. Mate, I've copped a lot. Mate, we've moved up from Sydney to Queensland, mate. I cop it all the time, so it's not something that I'm not used to. But I don't mind getting it from fans that know what they're talking about, but the ones that don't, I had a discussion with a Canterbury Bankstown supporter in the toilet in Vegas after the game, mate, and I asked him where he lived, and he said Brisbane. I said, well, mate, you might want to go down and have a look at Canterbury and go and live down there and support your team.
Says the Dragons fan living in Brisbane himself.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Oh, fantastic. Mate, thank you so much for coming on. It's something that we've been looking forward to for a while. You've been one of our biggest fans, and it's been great to have you here talking all things Dragons, mate.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute honour. I love what you do, both of you. So I think your podcast is completely independent. I might have changed that a little bit tonight, but your podcast is completely independent and you speak honestly. So I appreciate it.
Hey, welcome,
cheers, mate.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's always great to hear back from a loyal Dragons fan. It gave me a little bit of hope for 2027. I love the ladder prediction. In the bottom half of the top 8, we'll all be hoping for that. But look, as I said during the time, I thoroughly agree. The young forwards, we've been talking about it week in, week out for the Drags. I think the young forwards have got huge futures ahead of them. And I'm with Lyle, mate. I think Dean Young's the right man for the job. So I do agree with you. I think they shouldn't have rushed in. I think they should have taken their time, done their due diligence. But I think for mine, he's shown what he's got from the players supporting him and how they've improved. They certainly haven't rocketed up the ladder, but just the way they're playing. So I'm certainly with Lyle, mate, and I hope it's rainbows and lollipops for 2027.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. We talked about this last week that we thought it was time to lock. Might have been 2 weeks ago. It's time to lock him in. It's clear the players love playing for him. We've not only heard that from guys like Drinkwater when he was up there as the assistant at the Cowboys last year, but we've seen it in their performances and how much they've improved and how much they're playing for him. To me, it's a no-brainer. It's interesting that Lyle was talking about possible Smokey. I can't imagine anyone there that would excite the Dragons faithful. As he mentioned, the trend is young coaches. I'm a fan of Brad Arthur. I think that would be a good fit, but maybe it's time to move in another direction. I think why would you change anything when you've got Dean Young there set up, ready to go, and he's got them pointing in the right direction?
Yeah, spot on, mate. I couldn't agree more. So I'll be cheering them on this weekend like always and next year regardless of who they pick. But I just hope they get it right, mate. As a fan, it's been a long time since we've been able to see continued success. So hopefully they get it right and the fans, are all cheering them on with a smile on their face.
Absolutely. Now you've got the big red pen out again and you're putting a line through another contender. Who are you going to disappoint this week?
This is rugby league. You wouldn't believe it. We gave our predictions on Monday's show, and as fate would have it, the Melbourne Storm have lost Munster for at least 4, potentially 6 weeks, and then Hughes has gone down with a hamstring injury. And traditionally hamstrings are one of those things that it could be next week, it could be 2 or 3 weeks. So, we spoke about the Storm getting in that log jam around that 8th spot, for and against being so important. That's if they knocked over some of those other teams. And I just think it's going to be too hard for them, mate. So for mine, they've got to win at least 4, possibly 5 games to make it. Their for and against isn't good. It's -2. Seagulls are 130. The Dolphins are 64. Rabbitohs 86. So they're going to be up against it. But they've got to win 4, probably 5, and they've got Roosters, Souths, Dogs, Manly, Panthers, Broncos, Sharks. Like, in anyone's language, that is an absolute tough run. So I had them coming home with a charge, and I actually had them scraping into the 8 as we spoke on Monday. But without Munster for the large chunk of that, by the time he gets back, it'll probably be all over for them. And we're not sure about Hughes. Everything's going to be on poor old Harry Grant, who's had a monster season. I genuinely think he's been so underrated is what he's achieved this year. Origin as well. Obviously, Game 3 wasn't a big opportunity for him, but Games 1 and 2 and throughout this season, he's been absolutely phenomenal. But I just don't think even as good as Harry Grant is, I just can't see them getting up and getting those 4 or 5 wins. So I think this year is going to be the first year Bellamy misses the top 8, which is disappointing for him because it's been quite an achievement and quite a run. But for me, unfortunately, I put a red line through the Storm this year.
If it ends up being Bellamy's last year, that'll be a really sad way for his reign to finish, because in the history of the Storm, I think they only missed the 8 4 times, and one of those was the salary cap year.
Yep.
But if Harry Grant can drag them to the 8, it quite possibly be his greatest achievement. He lit up the Tigers when he went there on loan for his basically the start of his first grade career. He took them from being the bottom of the table to suddenly contending with teams all over the table. I remember when Para were still in that sort of top 6 regularly when he had that year, and watching him play. And he was scary. It was like his 5th first grade game after the loan deal had been done. He was that good. And, of course, we've seen what he's gone on to do since then. But if he could get this mob, because as Kenty described them last weekend, they were a rabble. And that's very unusual for a Storm team. Now, Bellamy's all about systems. He's all about getting them play in the same way. It really is the first time where when it's like next up mentality just hasn't worked. And as good as Kieran Wishart is, he's not Hughes, he's not Munster. They could be lacking some real creativity. The only thing you could see is, does it just bring it back to, let's just play really simple and let Harry Grant do all the creativity, and we just go up the middle, trying to go through the front door. That's their only chance for mine.
Yeah, that's exactly what will happen, mate. There's no doubt about that. Wishart's a runner. There's no question. Even Suafealongo, while he's got a pass on him, he's a run-first kind of guy. But that being said, they're replacing run-first players. Munster and Hughes are still run-first. Hughes has developed his game, but he's still a run-first guy. Obviously, Trent Talia, I hope I pronounced that right. He's got a bit more organisation in him, but there's no doubt that everything needs to come off Harry Grant, and everything needs to be direct, smack mouth football straight down the middle, and then hope that they've got some creativity with Failongo and those cross kicks to Warbrick to try and score some points at the other end. And look, you're 100% right. For mine, Harry Grant doesn't get the credit he deserves because he's followed Cameron Smith, but he's that far behind Nathan Cleary for mine is the best player in the league. Like he's special, and if he still has longevity left in him and he goes injury free, for mine he's going to be every inch what Ken Smith's done. So that's how good I genuinely think Harry Grant is. And no one in a Storm jersey will give up. They will try and fight to the last breath to get Bellamy a top 8 spot. I just think they're just not going to have the talent and the creativity, mate, through that spine to be able to score the points. I hope I'm wrong. I genuinely, which is strange considering they always make the semis, they always perform well, they always make grand finals. There'd be a lot of people out there death riding the Storm. But on the back of what Bellamy's done and what he's going through, I hope they do make it. I hope I'm wrong, but with that run home, you're not going to think there's going to be any easy games. And they've got to win 4, probably 5. Mate, if I'm going to be fair dinkum with you, I just can't see them doing it.
No, I'm with you. To me, you can't compare Cam Smith and Harry Grant because they're different players. They play the same position, but Cam Smith just had such control of games. But Harry Grant doesn't play that way. Cam Smith doesn't have the flair, doesn't have the creativity that Harry Grant has. Yes, he had creativity. Obviously, he did it his way. But Harry Grant just can create something out of nothing. There was a try. Was it a semi-final try that he set up from dummy half? He threw that ridiculous pass to the winger, like stuff like that. He his speed out of dummy half. That's something Cam Smith did not have.
Yeah, spot on.
And his ability to do just the unpredictable and just create something out of nothing. Yeah, crazy. It'll be a massive test of character for that entire Storm organisation, given what they're going to have to go through. And I'm with you. I just don't think that there's going to be enough in the tank from what we've seen this year. It's going to take a pretty remarkable comeback for them to get there. So I'm with you. Let's put the big red pen through them, and we knock off another team, which will make those who are hoping that their team can scrape into the 8. That'll make them happy.
Yeah, spot on, mate. I think it certainly gives a little bit more hope to those, Cowboys, Manly, potentially the Raiders. It's a monster game for the Raiders this week, and they're going to need to go on an absolute run. But, I just can't see the Storm doing it, mate.
Absolutely. All right. We talked about the Coach of the Year contenders earlier in the week, but we want to talk about the coaches under pressure. Now, there is going to be some big-name teams missing the 8. There's also going to be some teams there that continue to languish in the bottom end of the table. So it really places a few teams and coaches in interesting positions, not just the finish of this year, but how they start next year. Now, if we look at someone like Jason Riles, who got a bit of money in the bank for how the Eels finished last year, while there's been improvement at the back end of the year, they don't seem to be going better than they were last year. There's a few other teams that are still in the bottom, but they've had new coaches. It gives them a bit of time. I mean, to me, the standout is, yes, he won a premiership, last year, But at the moment, Brisbane are sitting at 5 wins. 5 wins just seems unthinkable at this time of year, that after they just, like what they did at the back end of last year, that they'd be sitting in that position. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
No, definitely not. You mentioned too, for mine, and you're spot on, mate. Rolls obviously hasn't improved on last year's team, but not only on the ladder, but just the way they've played. Admittedly, a lot of injuries for the poor old Eels. Losing Hopgood, he was as fit as he's ever been to start a season, and just didn't get on the field. And then, certainly Maguire again. They're pointing to a lot of injuries. There's been a lot of talk up here in Brisbane over the last week. Maguire himself, Payne Haas, has come out, basically said, no more excuses. We're fully fit and we're ready to go. Well, they're coming up against Penrith down in Western Sydney on Friday night or Thursday night. That's talk about putting your balls on the line. Like, if they want to come out and beat Penrith down there, everyone will stand up and take notice. But yeah, look, Maguire just hasn't, he'll point to injuries, but for mine, there's been players on the park that haven't continued the form. Like Walsh has been nowhere near where he's needed to be. Staggs has had his games here and there. Obviously Walters and Haas have been out for injured for a long time, but for me, he hasn't got them playing better. And that's the mark of the coach for me, that there's that continuous improvement. So, both, I don't think both coaches are in danger of losing their job, but I certainly think there's pressure building. But I flip it the other way, mate. I look at some of these teams in the top 8, and when I say I don't think there's pressure about them losing their job, and now it's time to go and win a comp. And Andrew Webster and Craig Fitzgibbon are two for mine that come to mind. They've got red-hot sides. Certainly the Warriors and probably the Sharks are going to make the top 4. What do they do from here? So they'll be laying awake at night, tossing and turning over every decision they make. And they'll be putting more pressure on themselves than anyone else. But that's when we see who's the coach and who's the career coach out of it. So the Sharks, have made top 4, year in, year out. They've been bundled out several times now, haven't made a grand final in the last few years. So the pressure will mount for Fitzgibbon very, very quickly. And then Webster, we know how talented this Warriors side is. And if it wasn't for Penrith's sensational run this year, the Warriors would be the talk of the town. So they should be. But what does Webster do now to finish it off? There's a lot of coaches over the years that have been able to get teams into the top 4, get teams near grand finals, but it takes a different sort of coach to win a comp. So it'll be interesting to see what Webster and Fitzgibbon do when the whips are cracking come September.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on with the Sharks. There's still that pressure of some of their players that just haven't been re-signed long term. So they've got the core guys that are, but they need to go to another level. They need to, to me, at the very least, hit a prelim and then be highly competitive in that prelim for it to feel like they've progressed, because they've, like you said, too many top 4s, not enough progress. And as good as they've been the last few weeks, maybe even the last month, to be fair, they've just been too inconsistent. Now, if they go on a run the next 5-6 weeks, maybe he has learnt the lesson. Maybe he's actually got them primed to peak at the right time of the year, because previous years when they've made the top 4, they've kind of tailed off. So maybe he's done it in the right order and they're actually going to build to something. But we also thought that last year. Do you remember last year when we were talking and we talked about how they were playing direct? The middles were going straight hard. They were given plenty of time and space for Brayley. The halves were playing off that, and we're like, oh, they're back and they're going to do something, and then they faded away again. So if they hit a wall again, there'll definitely be pressure. The other one that sort of comes to mind is Bennett. Do we think he's overachieved or underachieved with his South lineup this year?
Oh, wow. That's a question, mate. That's a ripper. Everyone gave him a free pass last year because of the injuries, right? And obviously he's built up more brownie points than exist anywhere else in the world. So that's an interesting one. And then this year they were flying. Latrell gets injured, and then, at best they're probably 50-50 since then. So that's a real good shout. It's one of those Jason Rolls, Madge Maguire stories. Bennett's not in danger of losing his job. He will coach at South for as long as he wants to coach at South. But you're right. They come up against the Raiders this week, and we'll talk about that shortly. And they've got an okay run home, but certainly not tremendous. If they drop a few more games and miss the 8, it's not a pressure of losing his job, but it's the pressure of they got a better team than that. On paper, they should be making the 8. Obviously, that Latrell injury has been huge. He's probably another week or 2 away, depending on how it pulls up when he starts getting into some more heavy training. But that's a bloody good question, mate. The answer is I think they need to make the semis. If they make the semis, it's a pass mark for him. I don't think they've got the roster to win the comp. They'd have to go on the run of all runs to win the comp, but they've got the roster to make the 8. So, I think that comes down to the next 4 to 5 weeks for mine, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. If you just look at some of the coaches, Dragons will have a new coach. He'll be safe. Gold Coast, Josh Hannay will be safe. Riles, he's been there 2 years, so he'll start to feel the pressure if they start badly next year. Maguire, no doubt, will as well. I think Benji's got a bit of money in the bank. Ricky's not under any pressure at Canberra for obvious reasons with what they're up against in terms of recruitment. He's gone all in with youth, and they're certainly building for another crack there. But then if you look at the next team, the Doggies.
Yep.
Serrano was cool as a cucumber the previous 2 years when expectations were low. But, man, he has looked under the pump and he's looked stressed. He's looked agitated in some of his press conferences. If they tail off this year and then start next year badly, mate, he will be, to me, the coach under most pressure at the start of 2027.
Couldn't agree more, mate. You've summed that up perfectly. And then, put it another way, Serraldo knows exactly what Gus is like. He knows what has happened at Penrith. When do you start to sit back and go, as good a relationship as I have with Gus, I know he's going to tap me on the shoulder if I don't turn this around. So internally, that pressure would be building almost loss by loss. And they went on a couple of runs. They won 2 or 3 games in a row there over that beginning of the Origin period. But all in all, they haven't been impressive at all. And again, we're going to point to injuries, but every team's had the injuries, right? So when does it get to the stage where we've made recruitment decisions that have been poor, we've changed the spine up again to Serraldo, you're not getting the best out of these players, we're going to have to move you along. Huge shout there, mate.
Yeah. Could he be the Smoky that the Dragons are talking to?
Oh, surely not.
Well, surely you just said he knows. Because you're right. Because do you remember he said Trent Barrett will be the coach here for long after I'm gone.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and how did that pan out?
Exactly.
He sacked Ivan Cleary, who's turned out to what everyone's saying is the best case in the last 5 years. Look, the word is and we didn't talk about it while Lyle's on. The word is the secret contender for the Dragons roles in Queensland currently. Now, whether he's coaching in Queensland or he just resides in Queensland, no one knows. It's the biggest mystery going around. I still think it'll be Young or Hornby, but they're talking about Queensland. But no, look, Serraldo, I don't think another club will pick Serraldo up and poach them from the Dragons. I think if this goes pear-shaped next year for Serraldo, I think you'll have some time off before someone picks him up. But it's a very interesting one. If they don't hit the ground running, then Gus needs to do something because traditionally he tries to throw a few people in front of the bullets before he cops one. So it'll be interesting to see.
It would be very interesting. The obvious name is something that Lyle mentioned, or maybe you mentioned, Ben Teo. But who's the current coach of Wynnum Manly, mate?
The current coach of Wynnum Manly. You're going to test me, mate. I should be across my Q cup. Lay it on me.
A young Dragons halfback from a while back, Matty Head.
Oh, he is too. Yeah, that's 100% he is too. Yeah. Look, I never even thought about Head because I've been doing the runs around who it could possibly be. I think it'll be an old player because they're the top 2 candidates, and St George traditionally have done that. Even Flanagan had, in his junior time, had connections with the Dragons. So I never thought about Head. Look, he's doing good things in the coaching. He has been around and done a bit of an apprenticeship. Wynnum do feed into the Broncos, so he's had plenty of access to them. So yeah, they're not doing tremendous in the Q Cup. They're around that 8th spot, I think, but that could be a good shout, mate. I never thought about that.
Well, traditionally, Win and Manly haven't had the same budget as a lot of those teams there. So maybe 8th place with the squad he's had is actually a good result. But that was just the name that popped into my head given his Dragons background.
Good
And
shout.
the only other, like, there's a couple of guys there, like we said, Penteo, Luke Burt. Who's the guy? Carmichael Hunt, who had a bit of a stoush with Madge, apparently,
Yes.
although they talk
Yes.
that down.
Yes.
It is fascinating that they're actually going that maybe not so left field, but in an area that no one's thought about. Very interesting.
Yeah, I think it shows a good thing. You know, Ben Cray, who's now heavily involved, he has, while he's obviously a rugby league background, he's done a lot of business at university. He's got his degrees, etc. So it shows they're doing their due diligence. You know, even he's had some time in the Super League, but my beloved Devils, Rowan Smith, who is a sensational coach and has done a lot with had a lot of success with the Devs. So there's a lot of people in the Q Cup at the moment that are certainly thereabouts and ready to coach in the NRL. So it'll be interesting. There aren't too many secrets floating around rugby league, and certainly that they don't last long. So I'm pretty confident whoever it is will get outed very shortly. So hopefully, hopefully it's a good one, whoever they pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we're not going to go through every game, and we've actually made a conscious choice to be more about the stories that are a little bit different. But we are going to talk about the game of the week. Now, given the tightness of the competition, there's plenty of good games again this week, but you've gone for one game in particular, mate. Who do you like?
I've just gone the Sharks and the Knights. I think both teams, the Sharks have gotten through Origin winning games without their stars at all times, and they've just continued to find a way, which has been big for them. I know last weekend didn't pan out for them with South, but they were bloody close in the end. They get Bradman Best back, which is a big inclusion, and the Sharks are similar. So they've been inconsistent, as you mentioned, but they're just starting to feel like they're just playing some more consistent football over these last few weeks. They're 3-1 over the last month of footy. Brent Nickera comes back into that side, so they're both teams are full strength. I'd love to see this game on a Sunday afternoon. Dry footy. It'll be Friday night, so there could be a little bit of dew floating around out there in the Shire. But two backlines that are absolutely jam-packed with talent, and I think you'll see them both in full force. And it'll be up to the forward packs, whoever can dominate the middle and at least hold their own and give their backs an opportunity to shine or win the game. So for mine, I'm going to lean towards the Sharks. I think that forward pack with Fanua Blake, Brayley just looks like he's going to continue to get better and better on the back of Origin. Nickera out wide and the old faithful Cam McInnes, mate, he just keeps on fighting away. So I've got the Sharks, but I think this will be an absolute bumper game and it'll have huge impact on that top four finishing for either team, how this one comes out.
Absolutely. You mentioned Cam McInnes. That the fact that their season has started to really pick up momentum since he came back from that long-term injury. We talked about it at the time. What impact will it have? Well, I hadn't really thought about it, so you just mentioned his name then, but quite possibly he has become that glue that's really galvanised them and got them heading in the right direction. Yeah, it should be a cracker, like you said. Two great backlines. Obviously, they both got good forward packs. And that 6 o'clock game on a Friday night often is a hidden gem. So I'm always trying to tune in for that game because there's usually a bit of points scored. The other big game of the weekend is the Queensland Derby, Cowboys-Dolphins. And you mentioned that game, Sharks Knights, being pretty pivotal in the makeup of the top 8. This one is going to be huge. And the team that doesn't win this might find themselves in a bit of trouble when it comes to that final 8 makeup.
You're spot on, mate. Yeah, 100% right. Both clubs have had 10 wins. Obviously, Katoa being out for the Dolphins has had a huge impact on them. It's coincided with their Origin players being out, so it's hard to judge just how much it's been solely on his injury. Obviously, Brad Schleider's tried to do everything he can, but we all know, and I'm sure he's the same, that he isn't at Isi Katoa's level. So this is big for the Dolphins to get back on track. They copped an absolute walloping last week, and it just wasn't the way they've played since they've been around, truth be told, let alone this season. So they'll want to get back on track, and they'll want to play a little bit more hard-nosed, concentrate on defence, and just get back into the full swing of things. But for mine, there's no excuses. Cobbo's back, Bostock, Hammer. This is as good as they can put on the park with the exception of Katoa. So they'll really want to put a good show in. They've slipped from top 4 potential to now they need to win this to keep up with the top 8. So if they don't win this, they're going to slide out of the 8, which is you couldn't have thought of a month ago. So for mine, I think they'll get the win. I do. Tom Dearden has once again been named in the 22 jersey like he was last week. He didn't make the side last week. There's talk that he will this week, but again, it'll be closer to game time before they make that decision. So for mine, he will obviously be a big inclusion, and they've kept him and kept him and kept him. So when you do see him, you'll know that he's fit and he's ready to go. But yeah, for mine, I just think the Dolphins back with the full side, Katoa aside, I think they'll just be a little bit too strong for them, and they'll just reinsert themselves into that top 8 spot for mine.
Yeah, be great to see Tom Dearden back. It's a game that it would be fitting for him to be there because of like having all of them fit. I tend to be on your side. I think the Dolphins will be a bit too good, but either way, it'd be great if we could hear from Cowboy Kath during the week after this result to get her thoughts, particularly if her pin-up boy Tommy Dearden's back.
Yes.
So yeah,
I'm pretty sure I'll get roped into going to this one at Suncorp on Sunday afternoon, as long as the forex on Saturday don't hit too hard. I'll be out there on game day. So hoping it should be a clear, dry game, mate. Hope it's a super fast deck and Drinkwater and Purdue go head to head with the Hammers and the Cobbos of the world, and they just light it up, mate.
Yeah, be great. Now, we talked about the Dragons really warming up to getting an upset win, which they did. But you've done a bit of analysis, and you reckon there's another team that's primed to start not just getting a few upset wins, but particularly this weekend against a team that has fallen in a bit of a hole.
Yeah, mate. Look, don't get me wrong. It was hard to find an upset of the week. You know, the teams are starting to level out now. Origin players are back. But I really like the Titans this week. I think the Titans are certainly, again, we're similar to the Dragons. You're not seeing it on the ladder, but just the way they're playing when you break it down and you watch them, they're on the way up. And Manly, the gloss of foreign's just starting to wear off a little bit. They haven't been playing as strongly. They're 1-3 in the last month of footy, and it's just not looking tremendous. So, if you look at the Titans' last few games, they only just lost to the Storm. They beat the Panthers. They beat the Broncos. They've only just lost to the Tigers, which is pretty impressive. And Manly have only beaten the Storm themselves over that last 4 or 5 weeks. So for mine, if I'm going to lob on an upset this week, I think it'll be the Titans. They're damn near full strength for what they can put on the field, barring long-term injuries. Manly lose Ben Travojevic, who probably, he isn't at the caliber of the other two brothers, but he gets a little bit, doesn't get the credit he deserves on that edge. I think he's really continuing to develop well. So he will be an out for them. And yeah, I just like the Titans. I think they've got a win at home. There'll be a few in the crowd there on a sunny Sunday afternoon. So I might try my luck with an upset there for the Gold Coast.
Yeah, I like your thinking, mate. I think they're definitely heading in the right direction. And like I talked about with the Dragons a couple of months ago, I think they are primed. It gives great hope for next year for those Titan fans as well. Lock of the week. Oh, just before we leave the Titans, they haven't really signed anyone of significance for next year, have they?
No, not that I'm aware of, mate. Obviously, they let Phil Semi go to the Dragons. We spoke about that earlier with Lyle. but I can't recall them signing anyone else at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. He's obviously building a little bit more of a tradesman-like work ethic there, and you can see that the way they're playing, the way they're defending as well. So recruitment needs to be something for. They've got a monster junior catchment area. They basically go from Logan all the way down to Coffs Harbour. So there's plenty of great junior players through that area and pretty good systems in place. So it's something the Titans haven't done very well over the existence of the club. They haven't really put those junior pathways in place. So hopefully they've got some good juniors coming through. But yeah, for mine, I still think they're a couple of marquee players away from climbing up the ladder.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, great pains for you to admit that our lock of the week is the Warriors to beat the Dragons. We've talked all year about our impression of the young Dragons pack. They get one of their biggest tests this weekend, going across to Auckland. They have been inconsistent. Can they get themselves up for another week? Probably not. And if you want to lock one in as a certainty for this weekend, then it's the Warriors.
Yeah, mate. As good as the Dragons have been trying and on the improve, I just can't see them knocking over the Warriors at home. That 4-pack, Fisher Harris, Egan, Barnett, Capewell, Leyburn, Clark, that's just mean, big, tough, hardworking, talented. You haven't got enough words to describe them. And then if you do start to get on top, Stour, Smith, Vayamunga, Heliosima, give me a spell, right? Genuinely. So I hope, and look, we spoke about Young earlier. He hasn't pulled a wrong card yet. I hope he uses this as a test for the young boys in the Dragons pack. Let's go up against the best, the hardest in the comp. Let's see where we're at. Let's learn from the experience, spend plenty of game time out there in the middle, and really soak up the experience. It's not easy going over to Mount Smart and tackling the Warriors. So this will be a huge learning curve for them, and hopefully they look at it that way and try and soak up the experience about coming up against what is probably the best pack in the comp, mate, for mine.
Yeah, fair call. Last question. And I've had a bit of a think about this. There's a question from a listener. If you could sign one NRL coach to your club tomorrow, who would it be and why? Now, I was trying to find someone that maybe was a bit outside the box, and maybe if your team, you feel like they're primed, like the Sharks, for example, you'd go for Madge because he can get good teams across the line to win a premiership. But I've got a bit of a boring answer. And for me, it's Ivan Cleary, but maybe it's not for the reasons you think. Obviously, they've got a great junior nursery. He's got a proven track record over the last 6 years. He did good things at the Warriors when he was there. But for me, it's how he talks about how he sets up a team. And he rarely talks about football. He talks about the connection that the players have between them and how important that is. He talks about the importance of building a culture to create that sense of belonging, to create that impact as part of the community. And to me, they are the makings of not just a great football team, of a great organisation. So if I've got an open checkbook and they're going to say yes, then that's where I'm going for Para.
Yeah, good shout, mate. Look, if I'm a player, I would have loved nothing more than to play for Ricky Stewart or Craig Bellamy. That style of coach, that wholehearted, leave everything out there, run through a brick wall sort of coach. I would have loved to have played for one of them too. As a fan, I put myself in the Dragon spot. I got huge raps on Andrew Webster. I think what he's been able to do to bring some of these young Kiwi forwards especially in. We've seen what he's done to some journeymen some journeyman halfbacks. I think Webster just oozes class. I think he's always in control. He's really got an eye on the future. We mentioned him earlier around having the pressure on him about taking the Warriors from a top 4 spot to a premiership winner. I think that'll be internal pressure on himself, and it'll just be how he handles that. But I've got huge raps on Webster, mate. I genuinely think he is the best young coach in the NRL at the moment. And, whoever has him, and the Warriors would be crazy to let him go, but whoever has Webster in their program, I think they're going to have long-term success regardless of where he coaches. I got huge raps on him, mate.
Mate, that is a great shout. And I hadn't thought about him, but you're right. What he's got out of some of those players, it's a great mark of a coach that's doing good things when he's bringing improvement to players. You think of some of those coaches over time, of course, Craig Bellamy, Wayne Bennett, Brian Smith. He definitely had teams overachieving because he got players to play beyond perhaps what their capabilities were. So yeah, that is a great shout. He's certainly got some players there playing at the absolute best of their ability. Tanner Boyd is the one that stands out the most.
Yeah.
Like he was a battler at best, but before he hit his knee, he was playing career best football. So yeah, good call, mate. Good call. Good way to finish up. Whatever you're doing in your footy this weekend, enjoy the game. Listen to Steve. Drink responsibly, mate. And have a fantastic weekend of footy.
Cheers, Holger.